And welcome to my Facebook friends out there as well, and all of our KUHS Denver super fans and the community that we serve the best. We're going to look at it. It's July 3rd today, 2020. You know, at one point in my life, I didn't even think I was going to get to 2020, let alone to July 3rd. But I'm here, and I'm really excited about that. And yet, this week I was challenged from those that are in my world, my sphere of influence, my community, when they said, you know, why are you so optimistic? There are a lot of people out there that aren't. And I went, okay, I get that. I'll accept the fact that there's both good and bad, positive and negative. But I tell you what, I don't dwell on that. I'm going to bring the good first, hoping the positive or the negative is going to come at me, so I'm prepared. We're going to talk a little bit about that and how the communities that my guests circulate in have responded to them when they bring their positive. Hopefully it's not like some that in my world did. They said, you know, let's be miserable. Dwell on being sad. Go, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that because there are so many funny things out there because of what's going on. Like, I don't know where you sit on this issue, but if you're a football fan, given the Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, the death of people due to violence in our cities and towns and on the streets, and yet we have things like, should the Washington Redskins get rid of their name? Well, that's what's happening. The NFL is asking them to get rid of their name. And that's just not right. So we've got to, I want to get my other guests in. I heard a click on the scene here. Timothy, are you there? Tim, are you there, buddy? Well, we'll let you sit there for a minute. We'll wait and see. But my point is the Washington Redskins are being asked to change their name. And they're changing their name because they have been asked to get rid of that affiliation to Native Americans. I'm not going to go into all the details, but here's what really gets me. 87 entities to the tune of $620 billion have written in to the Washington Redskins and said, you need to change your name. $620 billion of asset value that the Washington Redskins have at risk if they don't change their name. What would you do? I know what I do. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And then you get to be that good entity, that good organization that's sensitive to the way things are changing. I think it might be worthwhile. Now, here's also some silliness that makes me smile. The National Hockey League has got their lottery for their draft coming up. In the midst of them continuing with their season. Now, they've got all kinds of systems about, okay, we're going to have this modified season. It's going to end in October, and then 2021 season is going to start in November. So that means you can have a Stanley Cup within weeks of the next season starting, as well as having to do their lottery, their draft, determine what teams land where in the order of success in their season to decide who gets to choose first. I just think you should do rock, paper, scissors and get it over with for the players that you have out there. That's my opinion. But that being said, this is where the sports world goes to keep our attention. The next big thing in the news of sports is who has the most popular numbers? What number in an NFL jersey is most popular to you? Is it Matt Ryan with the number 2? Or is it Russell Wilson with the number 3? Or maybe it's 18. Can you guess who that might be, since I'm a Denver Broncos fan? Or maybe it's number 12. Yes, exactly right, Peyton Manning. Sarge, you're right on target. And then there's this one who's down at another tribal location, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Are we going to have to get rid of the Buccaneer name? Or they don't maybe represent a group of people? I'm not sure. But whatever it is, let's be corrected. But that's number 12, who used to be a Patriot, Mr. Brady. Well, those are the highlights and the lowlights of what's going on in sports. But if you're a betting individual, you can still do that because the horses are running. We've got some horse racing going on this weekend. And if you like betting on other things than horses, you've got the whole gambit of soccer across the world that you can bet on. I'm trying to see what races this weekend. I don't have it down here. But one of the races that is going on, NASCAR's been strong for quite a while. They've got themselves in position to run again this weekend. And we have a golf tournament. So we got that going for us. Good morning, Diana. Glad to have you with me this morning. Now's the time for me to formally introduce those who are going to participate in our Freedom Community Talk. That's our theme for today. Freedom Community. And this week, like every week, it starts with a quote on our Mindset Moments every Monday. And the quote goes like this. You know, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I think it's very apropos on July 3rd. That quote comes from Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. You see how history kind of repeats itself? If we look back far enough, we can find examples that give us guidance and insight as to how we should behave going forward. And that was our quote for today. So I want to talk about what does freedom look like after I introduce our guest for today. Sergeant Robert Gonzalez, you are still active military, as I understand it?
Yes, I am.
And we also have with us Tim Whiteman, who is prior Army, who is still working for the government. I won't need to name that, but Tim, are you with us this morning?
Yeah, I think I got it where I'm at least can speak to you.
You've got it so you can speak to us. In fact, for some of us in this world, that would be good enough. Because we know what you look like. And I can say that because I'm blood. I'm family.
Let's turn on the camera. You can turn on the camera if you want to, but you know.
Well, we have a faces made for radio, and I own that. And I love that. So
Okay.
So we've got that going on. I'm loving where we're at this morning. So with that being said, we're going to talk about community, and I asked these gentlemen to join me today because of their experience, which includes military experience. And with that, I want them to reflect and contrast their involvement in their community that they participate in every day, and then the community that they participate as a military professional. So let me ask you this first question I have. Guys, in your community, the home that you live in, not the military community that you had experience with, but the place you live at now, what does freedom look like in your community? Give me examples of what you see that would go, oh, yeah, I'm glad I have that. That's really cool. Other parts of the world may not have that. I'm glad we have that in our community. So, Sarge, give me your thoughts on that question first.
Yeah, so those are great questions. So I would have to say some of the things in my community that I've experienced or seen is like sometimes they have signs out that says like neighborhood watch. So they have actual neighborhood watch organizations or groups that can be able to go roam around the neighborhood and be able to make sure that everybody within the community, within the housing development, feels safe. So that way, it's not whatever they want to do. It's actually groups that get together and kind of roam around.
I like that. That's back in the day when I lived in Chicago, look at every neighborhood, every time period has its moments where there's things that rise up. Back in those days it was the Red Berets, a gentleman out of New Jersey created the Red Beret group, and they came to Chicago, and they would get into communities and help with safety, community watch. And I think that those signs that you see now could be rooted in that behavior. So Tim, from your perspective, you live on the West Coast. What are some things that you see in your neighborhood that indicate to you what freedom looks like?
Well, something that happened yesterday was, COVID is kind of showing me that changed. Like standing in line to go into a store, I was thinking of, the stores of Russia and going into a store and having very limited access to, just food. And I was thinking about that as I'm standing in line to go into a store that was fully stocked. But, I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be walking in and out of these mega malls and things like that. And just simple things like that of going into a store and having variety. And other places don't have that. We have a lot of freedoms of where we even get things.
You bring up an interesting point. Are either of you concerned about what is happening in the United States about the access to food and supplies? I mean, yes, you're right. We have those freedoms, the pandemic is creating some lines because we're wearing masks and we're trying to protect each other. But supply chain is a current day term, and in the supply chain, I'm wondering. I'm hearing stories about food being plowed under because it can't get to the stores to feed people. Do you anticipate changes in our availability to the essentials?
Yeah, definitely. So I believe that the changes that this pandemic has created with the availability and accessibility to essentials is tremendous, because perfect example, just like Tim, I went to Costco yesterday, and the simple things that we would get, like cleaning wipes, just to be able to clean the house. For the longest time, we went for like 2, maybe 3 weeks without toilet paper, until finally Costco finally got a shipment of toilet paper. Like this simple thing. Harder to be able to get. So even same thing with food. For the long, like we went to Costco sometime last month, and there was no chicken breast, and so this time we was able to find chicken breast. We was able to purchase what we needed, or kind of what we wanted. It's not what we needed. We wanted to purchase the chicken breast to be able to have it for the children whenever we wanted to cook dinner. Like simple things like that. When you're out, you won't see it for, depending on how long it is, you won't see it for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
So guys, I'm going to put you into a scenario. I'm going to ask you a question related to what we just talked about, but as though you and I, the three of us, are the decision makers. So we're all three farmers, okay? One of us farms vegetables. One of us farms meat products, whether it's chicken or beef or whatever the case may be. And the third one of us produces herbs and other kinds of fruit products that they can bring to market. But now we're having difficulty getting that product to market. What are we going to do about it? Because we also know there are people starving. What are we going to do about that when I'm faced with the decision of either plowing under my crops or maybe figuring out some other creative way, but I don't have a lot of support from my local leadership in local government? What am I going to do? Tim, start off with it. You've got your fruits, your herbs and spices that you want to distribute to the grocery store chains, but you're not able to get them there. What are you going to do? You're going to destroy them, or are you going to figure out a different way?
I'm going to figure out. See today that there's still some roadside vendors that have come into the city of Seattle to sell cherries. There's a cherry season. So I mean, there's still possibilities. There's still some attempts, at least in this area, to have farmers markets. Yeah, they're doing the appropriate precautions for the COVID, but they're still doing it. They're still having these events.
So
If there's an avenue.
Sarge, you're on the East Coast. So I'm gonna see if there's some differences between experiences that happen on the West Coast and what you might have available to you it could be different. What would you do in that farm situation, being that vegetable farmer faced with having to plow under your crop versus distribute it to the communities?
So just like Tim, I would find a different avenue. I would find a different way. Cherry farmers. So what's great out here is that out here, what's big is strawberry. So there's actually strawberry farmers that sit outside of it's a great location. They sit outside of a fireworks stand or a fireworks building. And a lot of people at this time of the year, they're looking to buy fireworks. So they sit outside of the fireworks building and they sell their strawberries, they sell their peaches, and then they sell other spices as well. I know for us, for my family, my wife and I, we started our own little garden because it's easier for us to just grow or start a little garden, grow our little spices, you would say, that we utilize every day. And it's easier for us to go and just go into our little garden, cut off what we need, and then utilize it while cooking.
Well,
go out to create my own little farmer's market.
Well, I'm going to echo what you guys said because I'm going to be in the middle with the Mountain States in Denver. We've got a lot of that, but let's talk a little bit of strategy and pull on your military experience and talk about deployment, because now it's not just your local community, but it's the next state. What about leadership? If we can mobilize to bring PPE to the healthcare communities and service communities, why can't we assist the agricultural community in bringing that produce to markets all over the country in the same way we did that with PPE product? I'm just curious as to where community spirit is at regarding those solutions that you guys shared with me, but let's share it at a more higher level of deployment. It would look better to me to see a Humvee full of vegetables going down the street rather than a fully racked out group of military personnel. It just seems a little bit skewed for me. So I'm going to kind of mix our military experience with the practicalities of what our example has brought to us about deploying food versus personnel, armed personnel. I'll start with you. Sarge, I'm going to start with you first.
Okay. So I think that's great. So I think that the great thing that we can do with that is train. So take those that are spices and fruits and vegetable gardeners, and then try to help to bring into communities that don't have the accessibility to fresh fruits, vegetables, and spices. And try to help the bargaining and bring back the bargaining and the trading system versus, hey, let's bring this, bring it over and then let's sell it. No, let's do the bargaining and the trading so that way we can help to, empower those fruits, vegetables, and spices farmers with other stuff and bring it into communities and areas and to, I guess, personnel that can't really go out or don't have the ability to go out to these stores and supermarkets that can purchase this stuff due to the pandemic.
Tim, what are your thoughts? Because you still work with the government in an administrative role, and you see systems and strategies on a daily basis. What do you think about this thought of deploying fruits and vegetables through the network across the country?
Well, I mean, on the National Guard with boxes of fruits and vegetables instead of M16s.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to paint a better picture. Everybody's going to be, it's the positive images, it's the positive movement. We we've been involved in some muck and mire for so long and the negativity that we forget about how to be positive and how to do things in a better way.
Well, and as you said, the muck and mire and the negativity, I'm just going to do this for you. All right, we got some negativity around this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we can bring some positive to that. So Sarge, give me your comments.
So, great point. So with Tim, so being in Tacoma, so I know the local military helped with bringing onions and potatoes and to help the farmers to deploy these fruits and vegetables or onions and potatoes before they went back.
Yeah, we had a comment from Bella. So thank you, Bella, for echoing what Sarge has just said. Sergeant Gonzalez had just said about that. There have been efforts, but this is why I'm going to shift us to leadership now. Sustaining those examples requires leadership to pick up the strategy, energize the strategy with calculated processes so that Bella's comments, Sarge's comments, our thinking through this really has some legs to it. So let's talk about leadership as it relates to your community, because if leadership is working, we see actions in our community that represent the types of behaviors that lift us up and carry us forward. So what are some of the behaviors that you guys are seeing in your communities that are action oriented to the ends that we've just shared? The ends of getting that produce to places before it rots. Helping people in line with Look, I was at Home Depot the other day, and I was helping people before I even got to my own car with just getting their stuff into their vehicles, because we're talking all ages of folks trying to be prepared for what might be considered the next wave, or maybe it's not the next wave. Maybe it's the current wave just staying longer than we thought it would. So, guys, what are some actions that you're seeing people taking at any age to deliver not just positive results, but to counteract the negativism and extending what we talked about deploying produce? So are you seeing any actions in your homes and in your communities that represent that, and what are those actions? Let's start with you, Tim.
Unfortunately, it's more at a level, but I've seen restaurants that, like at the beginning of the virus, where instead of letting their fruits and vegetables and produce and stuff go bad, they just made up meals and gave them out.
Yeah.
I've seen a lady that she's a party planner, and because there's no really parties going on, she started making up these balloon things and giving them out in her community for people that are having the drive-by birthdays and the drive-by graduations. But she's not asking for any money back. Those kind of volunteerism, people just stepping up and doing a better thing and not just thinking about themselves and not thinking about the bottom line and the dollars.
Robert, what are some examples from you in your community?
I think for us in our community, I know we've seen like a lot more deliveries, so a lot more organization. Participating in the whole delivery of items versus making people go out. I think that has spiked. I know here in the South Carolina community, that spiked quite a bit. Being able to have things delivered, it's a lot more, makes things a lot more efficient and a lot safer. So that way you're not having to go out and expose yourself to the pandemic.
Guys, in your local areas, you more than likely know about the healthcare professionals that are out there that are the next level of warriors that don't carry guns but carry PPE, or they carry kind words and wonderful care of people that are suffering from the pandemic. But I'm concerned and wonder from your guys' perspective in your communities if you're seeing or hearing about any issues that the healthcare communities are on the verge of failing. Because they've had to deal with COVID and the increased expense, that's put a burden on their financial health, and that the hospitals now, because they were not able to see the flu, I shouldn't say flu, I guess, but the appendectomy surgery. you know, that not what they call non-essential procedures. That's money. That's profit for those hospitals. So since they had to dwell on the pandemic, we now have hospitals that are going out of business and putting healthcare workers who dedicated their lives in the last 90 days to the COVID, and now they're out of work. Are you seeing any of that kind of behavior in your communities right now with the healthcare systems? Start with you, Sarge, first.
So I haven't seen any of that in my area. I know it's non-emergent surgeries or procedures or appointments are kind of pushed to the side, are kind of like brushed off, and the doctors or healthcare professionals don't tend to those as they would to the ones that are like emergent and or dealing with the pandemic. I haven't experienced or seen any healthcare professionals laid off or out of work. I think the big move that has been circulated with the shortage of masks, the surgical masks that they did not have, and so now you have all kinds of personnel or people that are stepping forward and creating masks. For instance, my wife started making masks for her community, and she made masks for me, and I have masks that that she has sent to me, and I utilize them every day because, well, for me, I have to utilize them whenever I go into work.
So before we get to Tim's comments, I'm going to make sure that everybody remembers that we have one of my clients is AvCare, and they have PPE products, they have masks, and they have provided me with a discount code that you can use to get access to PPE products, the masks, and that code is 360 PERF, PERF for performance. That's the name of the show. See what I did there? 360 performance. So 360 PERF is the code, and you're going to get a 15% discount on your orders if you order it through shop, SHOP .avkare.com. That's shop.avcare.com, and free shipping. Ship it right out to you. Now they also have, as I handed out here, this is a lotion, germicidal lotion that kills and prevents you from all different kinds of bacteria and pathogens, but one of those is the coronavirus. In addition to that, they have a hard surface disinfectant, which is called Waltz D. I encourage you to shop at .avcare.com and get your discount by using 360 PERF. So there's my shameful merchandising comment for today. But take advantage of that. They're a wonderful company that's doing some great things. More to come on that front. We're going to be working with some great people in the near future about providing at no charge masks to marginalized and differentiated or disenfranchised communities all over the country with some help from some really wonderful people. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on the healthcare professionals? What are you hearing? Because I know you're in contact with a lot of them on a routine basis.
Well, they're starting to do I guess you would call it the non-essential surgeries. I have somebody that finally got theirs, some knee surgery done. So they're starting to get back into that routine. For me, they finally said, hey, you can start coming in face-to-face for some routine appointments, visits. And then you have somebody who works in the labs, and the main thing for him was like, he can't really, in good conscience, socialize at all. I think that's a big thing for the healthcare people, is the fact that a lot of them even have to spend their time basically face-to-face with their families. That they don't go home, they stay someplace else. And I mean, the healthcare workers out there are becoming true warriors for
So with that comment, gentlemen, let me ask you to talk about what's coming up. It's formally recognized today, but the actual Day of Independence is tomorrow. And the reason they do that, as you guys know, today would be off for a lot of people because it's the official day we recognize for 4th of July. But with that being said, I want to focus on the word freedom. Freedom community, or community freedom. And we've talked a little bit about what do behaviors look like for people responding to the pandemic. How do we deploy assets to people that need them that aren't getting there? Those may be examples of freedom. As Tim pointed out earlier about his going to stores and being available to go to stores without having to be pushed away. We're not doing that in America. We're trying to supply to the needs of our population as best we can. But what does Independence Day mean to you as a human being? And reflect on that from your full experience in this world up to this point. And I'm going to start with Tim in sharing what you believe your definition of Independence Day is.
Well, it's standing on a whole lot of people who sacrificed everything for us to have that independence and that freedom. And to me, it's just almost like Memorial Day, where we remember people like the gentleman I served with, Sandy Andy Moeller from Spokane, Washington, who came home with a flag on it. It's very, well, as you can tell, it's kind of an emotional time and point for me because of all the given and that a lot of people take for granted. And it's a time to recognize and reflect. It's not just the fireworks and barbecue.
Sarge, give me your response to that question, and we'll do a follow-up to Tim's point.
So that I kind of want to echo Tim a little bit because I've been to Iraq, been to Afghanistan. I've lost brothers and sisters. My greatest, I guess, my greatest, but my most honoring moment was when I carried one of my brothers onto the Freedom Bird. Flag draped over him. It was about 6 of us that carried him onto the Freedom Bird. So Independence Day to me basically just resembles the freedom that we have, the independence that we have that to enjoy, and mostly that we get to spend with our families during that time, due to those that pay the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to enjoy those times, enjoy this time, enjoy the time of being able to spend with our family, friends, even during the midst of this pandemic. We try to go out and have a different scenario, a different scene, a different view, so that way we can enjoy time with family that we haven't seen, and yeah, just to be able to enjoy this time, because of those that paid the ultimate sacrifice.
So I'm going to ask this next question, Robert, to you, after what Tim had said in honoring those and what you echoed, by looking at the entire population, some who have military experience, some who do not. So what do we as human beings in this country need to do on a daily basis to earn our freedom and respect those who fought to provide us that freedom?
If you see a soldier in uniform, just say thank you. If you see somebody with a hat that says either retired Army, retired any military, just a simple thank you for your service is like goes a long way with us. Like it kind of, a lot of us take it back. A lot of us say, oh, thank you, but it's more like thank you for your support, because us. We would never be able to get through anything. Deployment, years of being in the service, we can't get through it without the support of family and children and support of our community. My biggest supporter that pushes me is my wife. And so I give everything to her. I've been in the military 15, going on 16 years in October. We have 4 beautiful kids, and without their support and their push and me having that ability to come home with something is what continues to make me push forward.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with what Robert says. I know when I'm told thank you, I feel humbled, but appreciative at the same time. And sometimes the words are slow to come out because of that. That's just and actually listening to what's going on and ask questions and don't just take things for granted. We really need, we owe ourselves the time to really look at what's being said to us and try to understand people, not just brush it off and not go to anger. We're too quick to form a quick opinion and go, oh, they're right because they said so. Well, that person might be full of shit.
Tim, you make some good points along with Robert. I'm not going to shift gears, but I'm going to ask you to look at another dimension of this, because it's easy and convenient when seeing those in uniform or representing an emblem of the military to say thank you for your service. That's very obvious. It's stark. It's apparent. But the sincerity is strong when you don't have those examples and you still act appropriately with the kind of humility and honor that's necessary to represent in your community. The other day I got an example of that when someone was in a business meeting and the leadership of the business meeting decided to end the meeting with a joke. You've been there, right? Been in a meeting, a gathering where somebody's going to tell a joke, to kind of loosen things up and end the meeting, right? Well, the joke had an ethnic tone to it about a certain group of people. Now, everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but the comments to me was there was laughter, there was jocularity around the joke, but it was very obvious to anybody really listening that it was demeaning. It was a joke about an ethnicity that wasn't appropriate. It's in those moments, to carry what you guys have just said, when others aren't looking, the emblem isn't there. The fatigues are not being worn. It's not obvious to stand up and honor and respect your freedom. One of my colleagues did that and presented himself to leadership and said that was not an appropriate, and actually when asked, how did you think the meeting went? He said, I didn't like it. I rated the meeting a 2 out of 10 because of that joke, because of your disrespecting an ethnic group. And yet we tend to just take it and we listen to it and we accept it, not knowing where it connects to our heritage and the ideals that we as a country have represented for hundreds of years and have obviously honored when we see a military person in uniform or an emblem that represents their service, and we quickly say thank you. Obviously, continue to do that. But when you're not being seen by those who can see you and something presents itself, will you step up? Will you behave in a way that honors your freedom and earn it and continue to earn it? Because earning it isn't when it's easy. Earning it is when it gets tough. So that's what I want to make sure I point out to you guys in preparation for the next question I have for you. But as I get ready for that next question with you, I want to make sure I say thank you to everybody that's out there getting ready for the more celebratory 4th of July, which is tomorrow. It's Saturday. I hope you honor and respect your elders and share with them what you think is worthwhile about their presence with you, as well as taking time to have fun. Despite the conditions, we can have a lot of fun. Now, may sound political. It's not meant to be, but we all have opinions, right? We all have thoughts, and there's always something in our neighborhood, our community, that isn't just not quite right. You start off a remark by, I wish it was, could it be like? So I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to start with you, Robert, and ask you the question. In your neighborhood, what would you like to see different that would make everybody's life in the community better? Yeah, there you go.
That's a good question. So I would have to say, like, so in my community right now, we don't have any sidewalks. It's either somebody's lawn, somebody's front driveway, and in the street. So we have a lot of kids that like to ride their bikes, and they're just riding in the middle of the street, which gets in the way of the drivers. So I really would like to see, I guess, more open roads, or not open roads, but like more. Well, I would like to see sidewalks so the kids can get on the sidewalks and ride their bikes safely. Because I feel like when they're riding it and get injured easily. But I would like to see more, because I remember back in the day when I was a kid, there was like block parties. We would have parties with our community, with our neighborhood. I would like to see more of that, because I think having block parties or community parties kind of brings everybody together. You get to know who your neighbor is across the street, to your left and to your right, and that way you get to know them, they get to know you, and then that way you can enjoy time getting to know them instead of being like, well, that's the neighbor, or I think that's the guy over here. And then that way we don't get confused of like, hey, do you live here? We don't know if you live here. Let me chase you down until I find out if you live here or not. Or I don't believe that you live here. Well, if you would have came to the community party last week, you would have known I live here. And so that way we're not getting confused with that. We're not situations like that where people are getting confused with, you live here? I don't know if you live here. So, but also that community camaraderie it's great to have with within your own community.
I tell you what, Robert, you bring your mother's favorite dish, and I'll be there for your block party. Because I know you got some recipes that if you're hanging with my brother Tim, it's got some good flavor to it. So I could love bringing the block party and the food and the beverage, because that's a hook for me. I'll go across a lot of states to get to you to see and eat the food that you present. So amen to that. And you might have started a little idea in some people that might be listening to us about your community and helping you and your wife get something going there. And I'm not talking about sidewalks. I'm talking about a block party to, jingle the change in the bucket and get things rolling. So Tim, what would you want to see happen in your community?
At the block party, you can bring up the sidewalk thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
So Tim, that kind of. But I just agree with what Robert said. I mean, when I first moved into my house, it was almost like a token effort to meet the neighbors. There were some neighbors that were very receptive, other neighbors that weren't. I remember there was a big push to get an HMO going, which I would never be a part of. But a block party, I'm there. I'll break out the old DJ stuff. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to barbecue. I was in there buying fireworks the other day just to do something. I'm like, who am I going to do it with? Where am I going to do it? Where is it going to be safe? Always got to think about the safety and the liability. But yeah, I would like to see more of that. Smaller group. There's some bigger events that happen in the center of the suburb I live in. But as far as a community thing, I think it would be a lot nicer thing. I'm just lucky to live in a city where you don't have to know somebody to say hi. It's got a very small town flavor here in the Seattle metropolitan area, and that's one of the reasons I live here. But I do miss the days down in Clutier, Iowa, where they had the polka band or the flatbed riding with the lights around. They blocked out both ends of the streets, and everybody just ran around and had, homemade pastries, and that was times.
Cherry kolaches and brats. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I am a multicultural eater. Whether it's Tex-Mex, Asian, I don't care. As long as the spicers are there and the people are smiling, I'm all for it. So with your well, you gotta have a beverage. Okay, we'll get to that later. This is a
dessert. I didn't mean beverage.
Oh, desserts, yes, yeah.
Dessert cake.
Churning the ice cream. Yeah, there we go. In your comments, Robert, and echoed by Tim, it's about people, faces, sincerity, truth, humility. And I've got a quote from a favorite author of mine. It's Master Su, who wrote The Art of War, and it's about us. It's about people, and it goes like this: knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is a strength, but mastering yourself is true power. So you want that block party? Master yourself and bring that to others. Bring that truth, share that truth with others so that they see the sincerity of your actions, and not just because it's obvious by the pin on your hat or the fatigue in your clothes. It's real sincerity regardless of who you are or what you are. It's because you are. Now, as we get close to the end of the show, guys, I want to make sure I say thank you again to you and your participation. I'm hoping we make an imprint on someone out there, that we echo the the thoughts and comments of people that are already looking into us, and that they create ideas about the freedom of their communities, and that we can then begin to connect those ideals and those thoughts about what communities are doing. Like to our point earlier about the deployment of vegetables instead of armed military to communities. I would much rather have that going to Minneapolis than what has happened. I would much rather have that happen in Michigan than what is happening now with the closure of hospitals and medical centers and leaving healthcare professionals out of a job after they've given hours and hours and weeks of time helping to save the lives of people suffering with coronavirus. So, that being said, gentlemen, it's been an interesting almost an hour with you, and I want to ask you to share your thoughts on what you want to leave people in advance to celebrating 4th of July tomorrow. Robert, what do you want people to take away from today from you about Independence Day and the freedom of their communities?
So for me, I'm big on just taking away just like humble, like be humble, being able to be humble, not be scared of your neighbors, and hey, invite your neighbor over for a hot dog, hamburger, whatever you have cooking on the barbecue. Not to be scared of your neighbors, being able to reach out to your neighbors and bring them in, and kind of provide that, I guess, that closeness, that togetherness with your neighbor. But also the big thing, not only with not only with the soldiers that paid the ultimate sacrifice, but also those soldiers that are deployed right now. I have plenty of brothers and sisters that are actually currently deployed, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar. I know people in all those locations right now. And just always to remember and to enjoy your time with your family and enjoy the time that you have, and basically kind of like what Tim said, don't sweat the small stuff. Kind of just enjoy your time with everybody, friends, family, neighbors, just to be able to remember and just have remembrance of those that paid us the ultimate sacrifice and those that are currently deployed.
Tim, what's the takeaway for you? What do you want people to know from today?
I want to echo what Robert said and add this. I would like for people to try to not see the difference that somebody is, the differences other people have from you, but find those things that you have in common and bond on that, and enjoy this stuff. things that are different from you, very small compared to all the things that you share in common. Everybody has so much more in common than they have that is different.
And that's a good segue to the next point I'm going to make, and I'm going to ask you guys to think about this as I say it. If you want to reach out to active military right now, or you want information about more of the community in your area that helps protect our country, reach out to the USO. You can look at Twitter at USO. It usually be at USO in a city, like there's at USO Chicago, there's at USO Denver. They've got a great network of being able to get best wishes, materials, toothpaste, shaving lotion, whatever it is. They can give you the guidance on how you can support those active military people, and even to the point where you can send cards, messages of hope and understanding. Now, in addition to that, use that example to reach out to your local healthcare organizations and volunteer, or just share your thoughts about how grateful you are that they're there in helping them. Take a look, if you're a rural person in the farm communities, go out to your local farmers and say, look I could transport your potatoes to people that I know that could use potatoes. Be creative. In today's situation, anything goes. There's plenty of things that you can do. So guys, I'm going to ask you, do you have any websites or contacts that you would encourage others to reach out to share good wishes, share resources, or maybe just share a smile? If you have a website or a connection, please share it now. Robert, go ahead if you've got something.
So I know for sure I want to echo the USO for those will be able to get you into contact with. You can kind of like adopt a highway. You can adopt a unit, and they have the list of units that are currently deployed, and you can send. And I'll tell you right now, off the top of my head, basic stuff, deodorant, small little toothpaste, soap, and some snacks from time to time, some easy snacks, non-perishable snacks, beef jerky, things like that. Anything that can be transported, because it'll take about a couple weeks to get it here. But things like that. So the USO has different resources that you can sign up with, or you can adopt a unit and you can send packages out to these units.
Nicely done, Robert. Thank you very much. Tim, any thoughts on connecting people to certain organizations or individuals?
When you first said the first thing that came to my mind was USO. Robert, when you were being inducted into the Army, was one of the first things you got was a little box from the USO with a razor, toothpaste, toothbrush. That's one of the first things, even way back in the day, 100 years ago, when I went into the service. That's what you got when you first came in from the USO. When you got off from the airplane from being deployed, USO. You're in an airport and you need something, you need a shower, USO. I mean, you may not have $1, but you always have the USO. So, I don't know if I want to recommend another organization. But
excellent. Yeah. Excellent. All right.
I definitely have to. I would like to chime in real quick because USO is resources for us military or even stateside, because you can go to if you're just flying and you're going home for leave by either you by yourself or your family, you jump into USO, sign in real quick. You got snacks and drinks for the family. But one big program that they have that I love so much, my kids really highly, especially my son, it's called the Bob Hope program. The Bob Hope program, what it is you get a book and you put a little SIM card into the camera and you record yourself reading the book. And so every time that I would do that for my son, I send it. My wife would send me a video of my son following the video as I read the pages. And he would look at the video, see where I was at, and then he would follow it, turn to the next page. That's a great program those that are good with children.
Excellent recommendation, gentlemen. As we close out the last few minutes of the show, once again, I want to thank you so much for being with me today and sharing. I'm gonna continue to promote, as you know, as little brother Tim knows. I'm constantly thinking about what the military does for me and what it does for our country, and finding ways like this to distribute that information and make sure that people are aware of it. But we have a bigger community. It's not just the military. It's an important part, but we are a full community, a national community of Americans. Americans that need to be able to understand what it takes to earn the right to be free in their community, whether that's on base or at home sitting in your easy chair. It's your community. Honor it, respect it, and don't judge it to the point where you destroy it. Be well. Have a great and safe 4th of July. Thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, guys.